subjective proof because it is something that is true to the subject. In other words, it's true to you. Now this is quite often something, and I'll give an example of this, a subjective truth. For example, very often I ask Christians to prove to me that their claims about Jesus and about God are true. That their religion is the true religion. And one of the answers that is quite often given for that is that the reason that I know that Jesus is true and that He is the Lord and He is God is because I accepted Jesus into my life and my life changed. I used to do this and this and this, and then I accepted Jesus and now I became different. Those bad things that I used to do, I don't do them anymore. And that person may also talk about how they feel inside, how they feel that believing in this religion or following this belief system or whatever we want to call it has made them feel a better person, has made them feel inside. Now, that's all very good. That's all very good. And it's not something really you can argue with. Because on a personal level, that person personally feels that this is true. It's true to them. But the problem with this type of truth is that it's really confined to that particular individual. It's not something that is open for everybody. You feel different inside, you feel that you've been changed, but that's not something I can experience. I can't experience your feelings, and I can't examine them. It's not like I can open you up and look inside and say, oh yes, there's that feeling there. I have to take your word for it. And the problem also with this type of subjective evidence is that if it is really proving something to be true, if it really establishes something as truth, then surely if it's good for you, it's good for anybody. Like we have an expression. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. Okay, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. Meaning, if it works for you, it should work for everybody else. If it's true for this, it must be true for everything else. So think about it. Actually, this is something very useful. A very useful tool. I want you to try and remember this. Okay, you don't have to remember it like this. Okay, but the way to test the validity of a principle is to apply it universally. Okay? The way to test the validity of a principle is to apply it universally. Okay, in English, okay, the way to see whether something is true or not is to see whether that thing works for everything. So test it. See. If it's true for this thing, it should be true for everything else. So here we go. If it's true that Jesus is God and the Son of God, and it's true that your religion of Christianity is true because Jesus changed your life, then if Islam changed my life, which it did, it must also be true. If I used to be a bad person doing these and such things, and then I embraced Islam and I became a good person, then my religion must also be true. In fact, if you think about it, that's just about what everybody claims, not only for religion, but a whole range of things. Communism changed people's life. Smoking marijuana changed people's life. I mean, some people go surfing and that changes their life. So what does it prove? What does it prove? Absolutely nothing. It doesn't really prove anything. Although perhaps for that individual it's true. But it's not something that can be universally true. And so this is what we mean by truth. What do we mean by truth? It's something that has to be subjected to some type of evidence, some type of questioning, some type of inquiry. It could be historical, it could be rational. And through these processes, we come to understand whether something is true or not. Through a historical method, a scientific method, a rational method. These are some of the ways in which we could try and understand whether something is true or not. So I'm going to be frozen to the spot, talking right into that. I can't even see anybody. This is the weird thing. If you smile, I get some shining teeth or something. Okay. Anyway, brothers and sisters, what we want to talk about today is actually the real problem with this lecture, The Truth About Jesus, is the subject matter is so vast. It's a little bit overwhelming. I must admit that I've been sort of reading up again, and I consistently do this over years and years. I read up again, I get some more books, and I read some more stuff, and it just doesn't stop. The subject matter on this issue is so vast. There are so many different ways we can approach this topic of the truth about Jesus. The first way we could approach it is by questioning some of the premise, the foundations, the things that make people believe certain things about Jesus, about Christianity. For example, the idea that the Bible is the Word of God. This is an idea that some people have. Some people totally mistakenly imagine that the Bible is the Word of God. Now, we could question that, and we could apply that to some simple criterion, some simple form of analysis. And of course, the most simple form of analysis would be that if the Bible is the Word of God, we would expect it to be consistent. We wouldn't expect the Bible to contain within itself lots of contradictions. We would expect it to be consistent because God knows everything. And a being that knows everything doesn't contradict himself. A being who knows everything is consistent in what he says. So this is the first thing we would expect. So if we could find contradictions in the Bible, then we would have to understand that this cannot be the Word of God. It must be something else. It must be the words of men. Now some people would vigorously defend the Bible and claim that there are no contradictions in it and that it is